start with our next guest. Whatever I say, I doubt will do his remarkable career and life achievements justice. We could start with the fact that he co-founded one of the biggest and most successful rock bands of the last 50 years, namely, of course, Pink Floyd. Floyd achieved international success with concept albums such as The Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here. Then, in 1990, our legendary guest staged one of the largest rock concerts in history, The Wall Live, in Berlin with an attendance of 450,000 people. He has also been inducted into the US Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the UK Music Hall of Fame. Our guest is also part of the rare and courageous breed who use their considerable platform to give a voice to the voiceless. He's been a loyal friend and supporter to the incarcerated journalist Julian Assange. He's often, to his own cost, stood resolute with those suffering persecution and oppression. He is, of course, the one and only Roger Waters. Roger, we're delighted to have you join us on Raw Politik.
Thanks a lot, Mary.
We are on day 252 into this genocide perpetrated by the Zionist US Western Alliance. I wanted to check in with you, Roger, on how are you feeling today? I know that you've said Zionism is over, but with everything that we're seeing, I'd love to hear where your head is at today.
Good question. All I can think of right this very second is that this morning, one of my many emails, and I start every day going through all the emails that I get. One of them was from my friend Anthony at Double Down News. They've made a new video, which is a sort of rap thing, but with the most alarming videos and photographs that I've seen yet. And it's a bit like that last rap song that came out a few weeks ago, but except that it's shorter and it's absolutely to the point, and it breaks your fucking. I probably shouldn't use the F-bomb, but it breaks your heart, obviously. And so I won't get over it. Well, another email I got this morning, because I get one every morning from Melbourne, Australia, from Caitlin Johnston, my great friend, and our colleague and our comrade in this battle, this existential battle for the soul of the human race, which is how I've started to describe it whenever I speak of these matters, because that's what it feels like to me. And Caitlin's piece this morning is deeply moving. She bemoans the fact that she has become desensitized. So that's from Caitlin this morning. So that's hang on, let me get your picture back. There you are.
Yeah. So why did that?
I'm in the same place I am every single morning. I think Caitlin spends even more of her life than I do of my life in focusing on this disaster. I'm focusing on the disaster that there is, the potential for we, the human race, to lose the battle for our soul, for our moral compass, for our capacity to empathize with fellow human beings in the face of the enemy that we face, the war machine, the Israeli government, the this, that, imperialism, colonialism, all of that, the whole thing that is the enemy in this existential battle. So that's how I feel.
But did her piece resonate with you because you are also feeling desensitized? Because from what I'm seeing is you are not desensitized. And I think that some of us do go through periods of, I don't know if desensitization is the word, but just complete overwhelm with the horror. Like, as a mother of 3, I cannot imagine what it would feel like to watch my child starve to death. And we're seeing children starving to death en masse.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think the body will just shut down rather than really feel what it could feel like, right? But it doesn't mean that we've
Yeah, but with
desensitized from it.
yes, yeah. But all right, I'm sorry, I will interrupt you sometimes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I've seen Susan, Abu Hawa and
Yeah.
Nora Erekat and Diana Buttu and others, and a lot of the women who I admire so greatly in all of this, explaining to me, which encourages in me the strength to switch off.
Mm.
And these people, these are women and men I've seen the same, who
Yeah.
have family in Gaza. My
Yeah.
friend Ahmed at Palestine Deep Dive, he's lost
Mm.
50, 60, whatever, however many members of his family is, doesn't matter. One is enough. And I see them say you can see them, the effort that it takes not to burst into tears, but to think. That's what I try and do every morning. When I've done my emails, I think, what can I do today?
Right.
Can I do something every day? Okay. And occasionally we have small things that felt like they're important. I don't know if you saw, but my friend Eric Clapton, so
I saw.
you saw it. Well, that feels huge to me.
Mm.
He
Yeah.
is an old friend. I've known him for umpteen years. He something in him, I think, was activated by the
Mm.
whole mRNA fight that he's been fighting for the last however many months and things.
Mm.
And so I think that sort of opened him up in ways to possibilities and things. But for him to join me on the barricades
Right.
is deeply, deeply moving.
It is.
And can you imagine if there were others?
Well, why are there so few?
I think because the propaganda is so powerful and
Still?
because they've been scared off. And I know, and I'm not going to mention their names, but I know them because they've looked me in the eye and say, God, I admire you. I wish I was brave enough. I'm not as powerful as you, they say. My career would be over in a heartbeat if I stood up to the Israeli lobby. You've no idea how vicious these people are, how totally, and you said, you think I don't know? Of course I know.
Right.
They've been trying to not, so far nobody's come through the door with a gun, but they've been trying to destroy me for at least 10 years now, longer actually. So I know how vicious they are. And also, I saw the Double Down News video this morning. Never mind what they do to me or you,
Yeah.
or any celebrity. Caitlin wrote a piece like 2 weeks ago, bless her, and she was going about why won't celebrities stand up and be counted?
Mm.
And she went on. I thought, hey, steady on, Caitlin. What are you having a go? And then in paragraph 2, she said, except, of course, Susan Sarandon and Roger Waters.
Mm. So
She
other
got a
musicians
record
could
out.
potentially be doing the same. I mean, if you're not going to stand up and use your voice during an extermination, genocide campaign against defenseless people, when are you going to do it?
Well, probably never.
Mm.
But I'm not. I don't want this to turn into a let's not other musicians or
No,
actors,
of course.
celebrities or whatever, because I don't think that's helpful, really. But I do want to do more and more interviews like this where I can give free rein and vent on the genocide. I've been editing. We recorded one of my shows. It was in Prague last
Mm.
spring, because it went out as a live stream, and I allowed it on the grounds that, all right, you can live stream it, but I will own the film afterwards. And they went, yeah, sure. They couldn't care less about after. So we've been editing that, and I've made sure yesterday or the day before I said, right, I want a message at the beginning of this film, and the message is roughly, this film is dedicated to all our brothers and sisters all over the world who are engaged in the existential battle for the soul of the human race that is going on all over this planet. And then I talk about the genocide as well. And I say in the middle of the thing, if we don't resist this genocide, we may lose the existential battle for the soul of the human race. The Hammers will have won. This is a reference, of course, to the part of my piece, musical piece from God knows how many years, from 1979, the Hammer. And the Hammers will have won. It will be over, and that will be the end of the planet, because you can see the warmongers, the military-industrial complex, the Israeli government, the state of Israel is bound and intent upon destroying the world, not just the Palestinians.
Right.
And the people who support them, like Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak and Joe Biden and Trump and all the rest of the arseholes, people who support it, are conniving to destroy the entire planet on the altar of profit, power, and supremacy and racism.
Right.
Well, we had the Enlightenment a few hundred years ago. We've had time to think about this. We've had 2 world wars since the Enlightenment. And after the second of the 2 great world wars, we all got together in Paris, and we all agreed upon the 30 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And we all decided it would be a good idea if we had a United Nations and we had a body that could come together where we could all express our opinion and make our minds up about what is allowable in this world of ours, because as far as we know, this is not a drill. We're not going to get 2 goes at this planet. We're only going to get 1 go. So we did, but it's been seconded. So the United Nations has no teeth. The General Assembly is making all the right noises because the General Assembly, against the wishes of the United States and the other 5 original members, founding members, if you like, of the Security Council, the General Assembly represents the people of the globe, all of us. Right. And together we've all agreed umpteen years ago. I mean, in 2012, I made a speech to the Human Rights Commission of the United Nations. And I may say they stood up at the end of my speech and applauded me. And a number of the diplomats came over and shook my hand after it. Well, that's now 12 years ago. And still, we watched the vetoes from the French, English, and the United States of America, the Western Alliance, preventing a ceasefire in Gaza, for instance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we all wake up in the morning and think, how can we desensitize ourselves enough to be able to function for 1 more day in this battle? They don't.
Absolutely.
They wake
What
up
I've
and
been
think,
saying is
how
we
can we
should
steal more? How can we steal more from poor people and give it to us, the rich?
Yeah.
How can we do that? I know, let's have more war. We make fortunes out of wars. Doesn't matter where they are. And we don't give a shit about all the people who die. We couldn't care less about the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
Who cares? Let them all die. I see that Ukrainians are now talking about conscripting another 100,000 or 200,000.
It's insanity.
Deeply unwilling Ukrainian men and youths, and destroying them, using them as cannon fodder. For what? And for what?
Yeah.
So that Zelensky can buy another you know, Cyprus-surrounded hilltop mansion in Tuscany or somewhere to retire to with his millions when he leaves finally, which he will quite soon.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No,
I
I think you're right. I mean, you are describing a moment in history where it's a wake-up call that it's now or never, and we're shaping the world that we want to live in. I mean, we've been so lucky to talk to Jill Stein about, you know, the
yeah,
military-industrial complex. We've talked to Jeremy Corbyn about similar issues.
yeah.
And in this battle for our soul, Roger, do you, so I fluctuate between immense hope that, you know, we will achieve collective liberation for people versus complete despair that we're, you know, completely screwed, essentially.
Yeah.
Where do you fall within that spectrum? And do you think in this battle for the soul of our future that people of conscience will ultimately win?
Well, obviously that's the $64,000 question.
Mm,
I with a French couple, Etienne Rodogil and his wife, we wrote an opera about the French Revolution back in the late 70s. So it was the bicentennial. And there's a bit of text that I wrote, actually. It's not a translation, because Etienne wrote the libretto mainly. And there's a bit that I wrote, though, that goes, tears like falling rain, slake, tears like falling rain, slake the thirst and douse the flames. And cooling in the crucible an idea forms, a nugget of belief in the hearts of the poor, that maybe in the dawn's new light, they have a right to the law. So, and I'm only mentioning this because I'll tell you the rest of the story. And the story is this: one day, Etienne and I were walking about 9 o'clock in the morning down 54th Street, going over to the West Side to dub some music for this opera. The opera, by the way, ça ira, which is the future tense of ça va, as I'm sure you know, but it has a subtitle, which I added to it, which is in brackets. It says, "There is hope."
yeah.
Okay, so that's my interpretation of "it will be," is the hope. But let me finish. So Etienne was an alcoholic. It was the sun shining, so we stop outside a bar with it, and there's a little French sort of coffee table. We sit down. So he has his large, famous grouse whiskey. I have a cup of coffee. He starts smoking his Benson and Hedges cigarettes, which he chain smoked. He's dead, of course. He's been dead for umpteen years, and he's smoking this cigarette and drinking this quadruple whiskey at the time. And I said something I don't know, it must have been some kind of a philosophical question. And he thought about it, and he said this to me, and I wrote it on a piece of paper, and I've had it in my back pocket ever since. And not this morning, because I haven't got that bit of wallet with me. And he said this. He said, "Roger, I was here." Okay. I'm sorry about my quasi-French accent.
That's good. It's
I
good.
was
Keep going.
here. Yeah. I felt something. And perhaps I was not alone. And he might just as well have stood there and shot a fucking arrow through my heart. All my brothers and sisters all over the world involved with you and me and Nora Arakat, Susan, and all the rest of us. Perhaps I am not alone. I know I am not alone. Etienne, you were not alone, my brother. We are not alone. Now, can we wake up our brothers and sisters from the propaganda-induced living death that so many of our brothers and sisters live? Or apart from Gideon Levy, every citizen of the state of Israel, almost everyone I know in America, occasionally they wake up a tiny bit and they look at me and they go, particularly Jewish friends of mine, they go, "You know what you've been saying all this time to me? I thought you were mad." Now I realize that you've been completely right about everything all along.
Yeah.
People haven't started saying that to me about 2 years ago, about the Russian special military operation in Ukraine. When I was writing letters to Zelensky and his wife and to young women in Ukraine saying, you have to persuade the people to negotiate a peace. It's not difficult. The red line that was drawn in, and it was drawn actually in 1989 or 1990 with the agreement with Gorbachev that NATO would
Yeah.
advance beyond the eastern border of unified Germany and blah, blah, blah. And it's, you are steering us towards World War III and the death of all life on this planet because you can't keep your effing word about anything. And you're useless at governing. You're the worst governors in the world, particularly the US empire. You're the worst, absolutely the worst. Always have been, certainly since the Second World War. And yet, because you're so rich and your military is 5 times the rest of the world all put together and whatever, you are charging ahead down the road to absolute ruin for everybody. So, yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, on Ukraine, what was the uproar was about you saying that it was not unprovoked,
Yeah,
whereas clearly context says
yeah, I
that it
was
was.
very careful. I wrote a speech, which I made. It was only 14 minutes long, my speech to the Security Council. And I was very careful to say that the Russian, and I didn't call it a special, I called it an invasion. The Russian invasion of Ukraine was illegal, and I condemn it unreservedly.
Sure.
That was my opening remark about that. And I said, but it was not unprovoked.
Yeah.
And I didn't go into all the detail about everything that's happened since 1989. I said it was not unprovoked. And I condemned the provocateurs unreservedly as well. That's what freaked them out, because everybody decided you have to wave a blue and yellow flag. We're the good guys, Russia are the bad guys.
So, Roger, you said that people now realize that you were not the crazy one when you're talking about Palestine. So you first visited the occupied West Bank in 2006, and I think that's when your eyes opened, and you've been vocal ever since.
Yeah.
Now the tide is turning. We can see this with the university uprising. We can see this with the BDS campaign. Do you see that things are shifting vis-a-vis the narrative? And do you think the charge of anti-Semitism has now lost its weight?
To a certain extent, but they're plowing on regardless. They're employing the old Nazi technique, the Goering Goebbels thing of saying, if we tell a big enough lie loudly enough, everybody will believe it. And that's exactly what the New York Times thinks. The Kettlewell bloody piece about rape on October the 7th, it's exactly that. Listen, we know it's not true. We know this is all nonsense. We know that what Max Blumenthal and Aaron at Grey Zone and, Electronic Intifada and all the other
And
things.
now UN commissions as well. Now UN commissions have also.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But we're going to go on repeating the lie because that's what Goering told us to do. So we're going to do it. And the Israelis, unbelievably, are trying to characterize Hamas as the Nazis. No, Hamas are the resistance to the occupation, you dummies. Yeah. It's so obvious.
I mean, they've also said that Hamas is committing a genocide. They've also said Hamas is responsible for perpetrating a genocide.
Which is absolute rubbish. Their narrative, the propaganda. But I'm glad to say that this film I'm making about my show in Prague, I have that. It's all over the screen, all the time, all through my This Is Not a Drill tour. I'm pumping home that message.
Yeah.
If you like, it's my propaganda, except it's not, because
it's the truth.
Truth.
Right.
As near as I can get to it all the time, I'm telling you. So when they tried to cancel my shows, you know what? You know how they did it in Germany? They said, he is putting up the name Shireen Abu Akleh alongside the name Anne Frank, the filthy anti-Semitic hating genocidal Nazi. What? I actually stopped the show, and it's in the middle of the thing. I take off the uniform because I was wearing the big leather coat and everything, and I say, Shireen Abu Akleh and Frank, their names are in the same song up on the big screen. And the reason they're there is because both of them are victims of, they were both murdered by the state. They're different states. One was the Third Reich and one was the State of Israel. But both these young women, well, Shireen Abu Akleh was much older than Anne Frank, but two women who are murdered by the state, murdered by the state. So they deserve, they're our sisters, and they deserve to be remembered and recognized. Perhaps I was not alone. Perhaps we're not alone. Perhaps love conquers all.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end. I think we are definitely not alone. And I love the way you put vote for love, life, and truth. It's as simple as that. So I wish you all the best. I hope Andrew wins. It'll change so much.
Yeah.
Roger, thank you so much. It's been
welcome.
such an honor and inspiration and pleasure to have you on Raw Politik.
And she starts her piece, the dead children don't affect me like they used to. The images, the videos, they still disturb and horrify, but not like they did in the beginning. A few paragraphs from the bottom, she says, I want my tenderness back, God damn it. I want my tenderness back. Give me back the nightmares. Give me back the tears. Give me back the dry retching over the toilet and the shaking under the blankets. Give me back the collapsing onto the couch and not moving for several hours until my system can recover from what my eyes just saw. I'll take it. I'll take it all back again. Just give me back that soft, tender part of myself that has been withered to dust by a live stream genocide. I will take good care of it. I will feed it good things. I'll give it plenty of sunshine, cupping it delicately in my hands by the window. I will take it for walks and let it rejoice at the children running and playing, with their parts all together and their insides on the inside. Don't leave me hardened and darkened like a soldier. Give me back that soft, sacred part of myself that weeps at the corpses of children, so I can behold the world gently again.